Big pharma's getting rich, they probably thinking it's hilarious, while people out are dying, man, it's feeling so nefarious. We got a problem in America, too many people dying, yeah, but we don't really care enough. Addiction through the roof, but we're too caught up in hysteria, too busy on our phones to see the problems in our area.
Tomorrow and Thursday of this week, it's my understanding that the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices or Policies is set to meet to decide to opine on whether or not to add these COVID vaccines to the childhood vaccination schedule. If those vaccines are added to the childhood immunization program or schedule, they will enjoy blanket immunity. Moderna, Pfizer will have blanket immunity from any liability because of the National Vaccine Injury Protection Program or plan. This is something that you had called out early on, that's their big interest in getting these vaccines into the arms of children so that they can mainstream it and get it on the childhood vaccine schedule. If this happens, and there's been very little talk about it, it's scheduled, my understanding, to happen tomorrow and Thursday. If this happens, Moderna and Pfizer, with the help of the CDC, will receive total liability protection for this vast number of injuries that have happened.
These vaccines are so reactogenic that company would be buried if we were allowed to sue. So they will not market a vaccine unless they get full liability protection. Well, the only way legally they can do that when the emergency is over is if they can get it listed as a childhood vaccine, which means it's going to be mandated for many states like California and New York for children. And we know that children get no benefit from this vaccine. Children are harmed by the vaccine. 1 in 2,700 boys will get myocarditis. Probably 1 in 1,100 girls will get a lifetime debilitating neurological injuries from the vaccine. The reactogen this is according to Pfizer's own studies, the data from their studies. I'm not, people, I always say, Kelly, people should not believe what I say, and they should not believe what CDC says. Do your own research.
Pfizer is they're going to make $100 billion. They're making hand over fist money. When companies are making so much money, public regulators have an obligation to ask them the tough questions, which is prove to me your shot's helping older people, but also prove to me your shot's helping younger people, and prove to me you couldn't do it safer. Maybe a 20-year-old could take a lower dose. Maybe they could space the doses further apart. Maybe they only need fewer doses than an 80-year-old. You could do studies of all of these things. And then you could also make Pfizer do studies just in people who've had COVID. Most of our studies are in people who've never had COVID. But you know what? It's hard to find any of those people anymore because almost all of us have had COVID. And so it obviously, like any drug product, it might be different if you hadn't recovered from the disease than if you haven't had it. And that's another relevant thing. So why don't we push them to do those studies? And I think that's where the corporate capture comes in. That's where the money comes in. That's where and that's where the incompetence comes in and the groupthink. I think it's not just purely about the money. We should never underestimate the power of incompetence. I think that's a key message I have.
Our top story is brought to you by Pfizer. While testifying at an EU hearing about their very profitable treatment that they, along with governments, have pushed, coerced, and mandated citizens into taking in order to stop transmission, Pfizer admitted they never tested their product to see if it stops transmission.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunization before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market.
But I assure you, this shouldn't be seen as a big deal, because at this point, we're just splitting hairs over these finer details. However, the company is expected to be fully accountable by being forced to gaslight the public and pretend this never happened.